Good morning, everyone. Lovely to see you. Welcome to Miracle Network's Wednesday meditation gathering. Today we have Ken Gorman who will lead us in meditation. Then we have 20 minutes of silence. After that, we open it up for sharing. Over to you, Ken.
Welcome, everybody. I thought I would just start off from a reading. I always go to, obviously, to inspiration for these readings, and this is one I was reading last night from Rules for Decision. Um, and it talks about how what we're really up to is either deciding with God or not, basically. And I think this really ties into meditation as we're these are just different methods we're using to be deciding with God. But anyway, this is Rules for Decision, um, uh, uh, verse 30. Um, we said you can begin a happy day with the determination not to make decisions by yourself. This seems to be a real decision in itself, and yet you cannot make decisions by yourself. The only question really is with what you choose to make them with. That is really all. The first rule then is not coercion, but a simple statement of simple fact. You will not make decisions by yourself, whatever you decide, for they are made with idols or with God. And you ask for help of the Antichrist or Christ, in which you choose to join with, will tell you what to do.
Open your eyes and come back into the room. We have 23 minutes left for sharing your reflections and your questions. If you'd like to share, raise your hand and I'll invite you to take yourself off mute. And if you'd like to share something with confidentiality, put it in the chat function at the bottom of the screen and I'll read it out. Who'd like to share? Norman, take yourself off mute, and then Jim.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, the only trouble is that that 20 minutes wasn't long enough. I was just sort of getting into it. And the ego had a field day through most of it. It was just towards the end, got a thought, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. In other words, don't look for fault in what you're doing wrong. And then things did settle down. And it just made me very aware of just what the ego can do. Here's a perfect opportunity for silence and calm and a clean, clear mind. And the ego's in straight away. and it was to the fact, like I was saying, when will this ego go away and stay away? I know it's an ego thought, but just why would it not just go away? But that, of course, attacking the ego with my thoughts is still an ego thought. It's ego sort of self-defense, as it were. I'll come up with another one. You think as many, the Holy Spirit or Jesus or God telling you, oh, that's the ego, just ignore it. But the ego is not real, and nobody would tell me that. And, so everything that I was coming up with to sort of battle with the ego, if it was, or chase it, was all ego thoughts. And as I say, it took up nearly all of the meditation. And once this thought, don't lose this opportunity. If this is what you wanted, peace and quiet, don't lose it. And just the last, in no time at all, it settled down, and I was at peace. But unfortunately, the bell went. But thank you very much. I'm back on the straight and narrow again. But no, I just have to, let it go, let all the thoughts go, and don't try to interfere with them. Thank you.
Thanks, Norman. I will bet you that every single person on this call could relate to what you just said. Right? That's all of our experience. What helped me, it is when it was pointed out to me, and these are all analogies, I guess, or ways of looking at things, but it helped me, is that we have two centers of consciousness. One is in the head, one is in the heart. And when we're meditating, what we're really doing is resting in the, and these is the center of consciousness. And it turns out the center of consciousness in the heart is really who we are. And what's happened is, we're in a very intellectual society. All of us have gone to school for years as kids. And so we've found this center in the head. And of course, when we approach spiritual work, and especially the course is 500,000 words, we approach it from the head. But we feel the truth in it in our hearts, but it's still this battle. And at some point, and if you go to Listen 365, it says things like words will mean little now, and this is only a beginning, and this kind of thing. And I think I always say Lesson 366 is ushering us in to realizing it's not about the head, it's about the center of the heart that we all have an experience of. And when you know that, then when you're meditating, you kind of go, wait a minute, what's going on in my head doesn't matter, because that's not why I'm here. I'm here to rest in my heart. And the heart is always peaceful. It's perpetually peaceful. It doesn't come and go. But the ego tries to make the meditation about it. Oh, you're thinking. No, you're not thinking. You should ignore me. Oh, I'm not real. And da, 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 and around more thinking. I did a lot of, I lived in a Shambhala house, and in the Shamatha meditation, they teach you just to label it thinking. Oh, there's thinking, you know, any thought there. I'm thinking about thinking. And eventually you wear the ego out like an old shoe, they say. And you just start to see it wants to think about something. Meanwhile, you're sitting and resting in your heart. And that's what it's really about. Now we add another twist to that, a twist of supercharging, if you will, because we have this thing called Holy Spirit that my little reading talked about, that is always with us. And it turns out the Holy Spirit is talking to us in our heart. And so we can sit in that meditation knowing that the Holy Spirit is coming to us. And a lot of the course lessons, the majority of them, have us connecting with this sense of something greater than ourselves, greater, in the heart. And so, so we have this intelligence, if you will. So us sitting there is super powerful because we're inviting the connection with that intelligence. We're giving authority to that intelligence. And that's why I did that reading, because that reading says you don't make decisions. You only decide who's going to make the decision, either an idol, meaning pick something else, including the ego, or the Holy Spirit. That's the only decision we make. And from there, you get your answer. That's the mind-blowing thing of that reading I just did. We all think we're making decisions. The only decision we make is who you're joining with. So when we're meditating, the ego wants you to think that you're the one doing it. I got caught up in this in Buddhist meditation, and I came back, and we actually do a Sufi meditation. It's more called Muraqabah. It translates as waiting on God. And you have this idea that when you make time, the Holy Spirit is coming to you, and it takes all the burden off for having to do the meditation yourself. And it's a heart meditation that we do. And it's incredibly powerful, and you're making time and to connect with, to be part of this. And then what the head is doing doesn't matter anymore. And the more and more and more you do this, the more you see your real identity is this heart. And then you can just learn to ignore the ego. When does the ego go away? Who cares? It's not a thing anymore. Because your identity starts to become more and more and more you, and it always was grounded in the heart. And I think that's what the course gets at. Someone says, give me the reference, please. So I think you mean, so we actually, by the way, we've now started, I need to talk to Dan about this before I talk here too much about it, but I'll mention it. I wasn't going to mention it today, but since you asked, we've started call it a study group. That's a Course in Miracles Sufi meditation of the heart group. And Dan, I'll talk to you about it. And maybe anyone's interested can talk to Dan about details and where we meet and stuff like that. But because this meditation is very helpful as lesson 366 to the course. That's the way I look at it. Because I needed a way of, I spent years talking and thinking in study groups, and I needed a way of connecting. And I love this group that Dan and Teresa put together, and that we're doing more and more of this, because that's what it's really all about. So for me anyway, but yeah, I relate. But suddenly all that thinking and all that isn't a problem anymore. What we're doing is allowing our natural resting in our heart that's always peaceful. But it's not as easy as it sounds, but with this idea that Holy Spirit is actually doing the work as usual. So I hope that's helpful. Sorry, that was a long-winded response to that, but that's my take on it in English language with thinking. So it doesn't mean it's any kind of truth, but that's how I relate to it.
Thank you very much indeed. That's a brilliant answer. Thank you.
There's a request for the reference from what you read in Rules for Decision.
Oh, reference. Okay, sorry. You said that right after I mentioned our meditation. It is, of course, it's the so it's Rules for Decision. I'm on my phone, so it's T-30.I.14. And the way to find it is Rules for Decision section isn't that long. It's the paragraph right after the last rule that is in italics. Then there's a paragraph, there's a section that's, no, sorry, it's two paragraphs after that. There's a section that goes into explaining the rules they just gave you. And it's the second paragraph after that. So it starts off of, we said you can begin a happy day with the determined not to make decisions by yourself. And it goes into commentary on Rules for Decision. And it's the first paragraph that does that.
Jim, do you want to share?
Yes, thanks, Dan. Thanks, Ken. I just put my hand up earlier to thank you for reminding us of that very simple decision that we have to make between I think you used the words Christ and Antichrist. And I like to think of it as a loving choice or an unloving choice. Those are the only things that really matter, because sometimes the mind presents me with a whole range of choices. And all that matters is whether I'm making a loving choice with the Holy Spirit or an unloving choice with the ego. The particular choice is much less important than those two simple choices. And it's always good to be reminded of that. And during the meditation, as others have spoken, the mind was coming up. And then again, you have this simple choice of the unloving choice of listening to the thoughts, or the loving choice of listening to the silence in the meditation. And all that matters is that decision to listen to the silence, to listen to the meditation, to be present with it. All the choices of going off in thoughts, they just happen. But every time there's a memory of that real choice of listening and being with the meditation, it just all becomes so simple. The loving choice is so simple, whereas the unloving choice gets things very complicated. And it's just good to see that. So thanks, Ken.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I'm not sure. I agree absolutely. I wonder if I'm not even sure we're capable of making that choice. I think it's more about willingness, and it says in many places in the course that you allow the Holy Spirit to choose for God for you, and so it's more about us setting an intention of wanting to make that choice, and having the idea that even that choice the Holy Spirit has to do for us. And it's a subtle difference, but it has two different things to it. One is it takes the burden off us for failing to make that choice. Because what happens is you say, all I have to do is make that choice. And then you find yourself not making it. And then the ego is a guilt machine, and it kicks in and saying, you can't even make the simple choice. See what a loser you are, right? That's the ego. And it puts this burden on us to make this choice that we can't make, consistently. At least I can't. I try, I want to, but maybe the wanting to and being willing, and to allow Holy Spirit to make that choice. And that's the language the Course uses. The Holy Spirit will undo all the consequences of your wrong choosing if you allow Him to make the choice for God for you, is a Course quote. So it's even that. And the second aspect of that is it puts me in true humility, because even any time I think I have a choice and I'm accomplishing something, it's a slippery slope to arrogance, very subtle spiritual arrogance, and that's a real problem. Spiritual ego and all that are slippery, and so we always want to be in humility. And I have the humility to say, even I can't make that choice, but in the Course you say in many places that He will make that choice for us if we ask. And so I am willing. Remember, the Course says, be willing and be vigilant. It's the only two requirements. It doesn't actually say. So it's weird. It's a subtle thing, but it helps me, because I found that I know about this choice. You described it very well, but I'm failing at this over and over again. And then I read in the Course and say, oh, I will fail. And the failure puts me into humility. A bit like, an alcoholic knows that he can't stop drinking. And so he gives up on the fantasy that he can, through willpower, make the choice not to drink. The reason AA works is because you admit that, and you turn it over to God to make that choice for you in step 3, right? The steps. And so it's kind of like that. And there's a dual sense of humility and a release from responsibility for making a choice that seems very difficult. I don't know if that helps. That's just that helped me, that subtle change, because I got caught up in that. Why am I not making this choice that I really want to make? Oh yeah, the Holy Spirit says even He has to do that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. In fact, when that choice appears to be made, a choice has already been made. Otherwise, I wouldn't know there was a choice. Earl Purdy spoke about this on Saturday. He said that when you think you're making a decision for truth, the decision has already been made. Otherwise, you wouldn't know there was a decision to be made for truth. Otherwise, you'd be lost in the mind. And there is certainly that reminder that comes in to choose the truth. But in fact, the reminder is what does the work, not the ego.
Right.
I think that's what you're saying. We tend to, we remember that we remember what's true, basically. There's a memory comes in of what is true, and we immediately think we've remembered it. But all that happened is that a memory has surfaced of what is true, and then we decide we'll go for that or not.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? One thing that also helps me is action. I can sit and meditate. I can do that. Even if my mind's going to be busy, the promise is if I sit and how does a teacher of God spend his day? It says the first thing you should do is sit up, and the only instruction is to sit up and make time for God. Well, now we have a little bit more techniques for making time for God. That's our Murakaba thing for me, for example. But the idea is that I can do that. Now, I might fail at it, but who's deciding I failed at a meditation? The ego. And ego doesn't know if meditation is good. We just discussed, the meditation isn't about the head. It's about the reconnect. It's almost like God is coming to us, polishing the mud off of our windscreen of our heart, and our heart is becoming more able to sense the illumination of the light somehow. But it's God doing that. It's Holy Spirit doing that. But I can sit. I can do that. I can sit, and I can sit upright, and I can make time with no other requirement. That helps me when I don't seem to be able to do, you know what I mean? When the choices and all that get really, and then when I'm resting in my heart, of course, none of this matters, because 100% of that is all thoughts anyway. I choose this, choose that, this thought, that, whatever. We can't get away from that because we live in bodies in a world. But for a little while I'm meditating, none of that can matter, because that's a different TV screen, if you will. And I'm down here on this TV screen, working simply with this center of consciousness, with the heart, and I can leave all that behind. And the more I do that, the more I have peace, because the heart is inherently perpetually peaceful.
Yeah. So, as you say, Ken, it all seems to be about willingness. That seems to be the key.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's, I always, I always like the analogy of the 12-step program, because people that go in with addictions have tried everything to stop the addiction, and they fail and fail and fail. So the willpower is useless. But somehow in those 3 steps, my willpower has failed. Step 1, 2, there's a power greater than me that can restore me to sanity. Step 2, step 3, I turn my life. Whatever they're addicted to can stop. And so there's hope, you know what I mean? And I think sometimes we get ourselves into a mindset that we have to do this. And it's like, no, it's teaching us we can't do this. We're something bigger than us. And the Course says this over and over again. Don't try and do the Holy Spirit's job. His job is to fix all this. His job is to go into your mind. Your job is to ask and we get it again today, where it says you can't decide anything. All you decide is who you want to join with. Even that's hard, for me anyway. So, but I got something very big that, because I've asked in my prayers and whatever, will carry me, the same as the guy in the 12-step program. I don't know, and from that position, I'm in true humility. Arrogance can't creep in, because I'm not doing any of this. Whatever results I'm getting, I don't take credit for. I give gratitude instead. So.
Who would like to share? Teresa.
Hi, Ken. Thank you. That was lovely. Nice to see you again. What I found during the meditation is, firstly, I'm getting, instead of getting upset when I have thoughts, I'm noticing them and quite happy that I'm noticing them. So that's good, rather than judging. So the other thing, what I noticed during this meditation, is that I didn't really have very many thoughts as far as I can remember. But I did have a sense of heaviness, there was something not quite peaceful. So a thought came to me, can I allow this resistance? And as soon as I that thought came to me, can I allow this resistance of whatever it is? Then I dropped into peace. It wasn't for long, very long, but it was enough to feel happy with that. So anyway, thank you for listening.
That's a great thing to say to her, Teresa. When I was working with my first Buddhist teacher, our meditations, it's always the same. You're relaxing into some version of the heart, but it was space. And when we started the practice with her, she had us go on a completely clear day and look up at the sky and memorize what that looked like. And then that became what we would relax into. And the idea, and a lot of her training was around that our being, our real being in the heart is infinite space. It's space, meaning the space for anything to happen and anything can be accommodated. It's kind of like the sky literally can take a nuclear bomb blowing up. And a couple hours later, it will be the sky again. It has enormous capacity, for anything to happen and not be a problem. And that's our true nature, basically, was the T. And it's this sense of space we can have is really helpful. So thank you for that. That reminded me. I forget that sometimes. That was a while ago, but
Who'd like to share? Ken, when you meditate, does your mind go quiet? Or is it jumping around?
I have to use polite words on this call. I wouldn't though. No. I've been doing my Sufi meditation for 10 years now, and it's really, really helped because it's focused on the heart. And it's this idea that God is coming into the heart, and the training is you ignore the mind. Leave the mind alone is what they say. And it's very powerful. And that's really helped me because we don't talk about anything. So I have my Course in Miracles world that I'm still very involved in, where you need both, right? And then I have my heart. And so anyway, I spent the first 2.5 years of doing that practice, asking the meditation teacher, is it a problem my mind hasn't quieted down yet? Why is my mind still busy? And every time he would laugh at me, saying, I'm going to give you the same answer as the last 20 times. This meditation has nothing to do with your head. God is coming in and cleaning your heart. And sure enough, I've gotten to a point now where I have a sense of who I am that is, I have an issue with heights, and we went on a holiday and we had to go up really high. And I just said a little mantra, and I was resting in this heart, and I didn't care if we were in a gondola that could have fallen and broken into pieces. You know what your mind does when you go up high and thinks you're going to die and stuff. And I didn't care because I just go, oh, my body just sitting. And I had a real visceral experience of, I don't care if this thing falls and my body dies, because I'll just be where I am on that meditation every day. This wasn't a thought. It was a sense. It was like, the heights didn't bother me. It's really odd because it just develops this, you can over time reorientate your sense of gravity, who you are, back to the heart. But it takes practice. So that's what we're up to. And I think all the course lessons are doing that. I think it's just different ways. And so therefore, you really have to get out of the idea that what's going on in the head means anything whatsoever. Calm, not calm, this, that, whatever. But all I can tell anybody who has doubts that, I'm like the doubting Thomas. I literally at least 20 times over like 2 or 3 years, I kept going back. Why isn't my mind getting quieter? He said, this isn't where this is happening. It's like going to the dentist. And, he's going to work on your teeth. What your mind is doing doesn't matter. And you'll come off with your crown or your fillings done. But you have to trust that. And that's where the techniques and the groups and all that come in, because you really have to develop a trust in that. So you keep doing it on a daily basis. Because I will tell you, it's just like going to the gym. The results come with consistency. It just is the way. It's just, you got to just do it every day, and it slowly wears it down. And over time, something happens, at least for me anyway. And I'm very different than I was 10 years ago when I started this meditation. Where am I with the Course in Miracles? Well, a year ago we did that remember that workshop we did on Song of Prayer? I was like, more connected than ever. It's all working together, but that really helped me. So it's like I was able to read Song of Prayer and really sort of, for me, understand it, for me anyway, a deeper level than ever before, but because it was coming from the heart side. So anyway.
Thank you, Ken. That's so helpful. I really appreciate that. Take yourself off mute and show your appreciation to Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
One of these days.
All the best. I love you all.
Lots of love, everybody.
Bye.